It's interesting that during the Commons session today, all these people who are desperate to curry favour and to be seen to be doing something useful, Priti Patel, for example, who wrote this extraordinary article the other day saying that it's the Labour Party and the Lib Dems who are responsible for the Horizon problem. Well, it's the Conservatives as well, and surely Priti Patel, who was Home Secretary for quite a long time and did absolutely nothing during that time to help the victims of the Horizon scandal, she also ended up speaking in a Fujitsu conference. So I don't quite understand why she's trying to reinvent herself as the saviour of Alan Bates and the Horizon group. Nadine Zahawi, who has he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. Didn't he do something while he was Chancellor? No, he didn't. He simply broke the ministerial code by paying less tax than he actually owed. A tax dodger, and yet, because he appeared on telly in the programme trying to redeem himself, he can sort of smirk and look triumphant. And it is quite extraordinary. There are some important people in the among the Conservative and the Labour and the Lib Dem MPs and the SNP particularly, who have called out the problem and who have persisted. Lord Arbuthnot, for example, Kevin Jones, Darren Jones, and of course, the ever vigilant Private Eye. But I don't think there's anything for the members of the present government or the members of the present opposition to crow about in the decision to provide some sort of exoneration for the Horizon victims. And it's not quite enough, is it? The only reason they need an exoneration is because the government and the post office has decided that until they are exonerated, they cannot receive any money. Surely all they have to do is take away that sentence, that rule. All they have to do is remove that rule, and then they can have the money. They should have the money, and still go through the process of whatever form of court case they want to, but they certainly shouldn't be paying legal expenses. There are various things that they can do, but the government isn't really following those because the government isn't really thinking outside the box. The government is trapped into its box thinking, like a box hedge, and this little hedge fund way of thinking. It's a sort of madness in which we find ourselves. I wouldn't be at all surprised. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Nadine Dorries sort of gate crashed into this thing. Lee Anderson has been there. Lee Anderson, one of these tireless campaigners. Lee Anderson has hardly opened his mouth about the Horizon crisis until now. It's extraordinary. I think we're going to hear a lot more about this over the next few days, where politicians leap on this bandwagon. Perhaps some of them would be very happy to call for the resignation of Ed Davey. That would be a good bandwagon to get on to. Hollingerake's announcement, anything to beef that one up. Though of course Rishi Sunak couldn't resist leaking it all before it was actually announced. And maybe something to explain away the various government links between Fujitsu and the government. And I don't think it's simply that Keegan, the education secretary person, was married to a man who was the chief executive. I think there's a little bit more of a sort of cosy relationship between Fujitsu and the government. But who am I to speak? Starmer Stephen Flynn says that the Horizon crisis could not have happened in Scotland if Scotland had voted for independence. Well, yeah, I think it could have happened because the Scottish independence was a little bit after the point at which the Horizon computer system had been installed, and people had already been charged by that stage. So again, I think he's got his times wrong, his dates wrong. But everybody is trying to elbow in. But he is right. The SNP comes out of this looking fairly virtuous.